Countdown.
Hey, howdy everybody. Welcome to Cloud Native Live. We have some really fun guests to talk through some AI workflows and workloads today. My name is Taylor Dolezal. I'm head of ecosystem at the CNCF, and I'm excited to ask all of these people some questions. This is a CNCF event, so please abide by our code of conduct. Basically, that simplifies down to be excellent to one another in the chat as you're talking and asking us questions. If you have any questions, feel free to throw those in the chat, and we would love to get those questions answered. With that, I'd love to pop over to you, Erica. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What are we going to be talking about today?
Hi, thank you for having me. And hi, my name is Erica Hubag. Currently in my job, I am a technical product manager at Tetrate, focusing on gateway solutions. However, my life before Tetrate was largely around API platforms in the fintech industry. So what are we talking about today? We are talking about AI platform and scaling AI adoption within your organization to enable all of your developers to be able to integrate, for example, LLM technology into their apps at scale. But that's a bit about me, why I'm so excited about this, because I do love a bit of platform engineering. And so really excited to be here and a bit what we're going to talk about. And I'll pass it over to Arco next to introduce himself.
Hey folks, thanks for having me. My name is Arco. I'm a software engineer at Tetrate and also a maintainer on the Envoy Gateway project. Super excited to see all these LLM use cases being solved using Envoy Gateway. I'll pass it over to Dan.
My name is Dan. So I lead the inference platform team at Bloomberg. So I'm also like a case of project maintainer. And today I think I'm excited to join this panel to talk about the story, how we had work together to build the AI gateway in the open source community. Very happy to be here to tell our story.
Really excited. And Yushu, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're excited to talk about today?
Sure. Called CNCS AI. We use cloud native technology to build AI infrastructure. I'm very excited to be here to talk about our journey working with Tetrate to put together AI gateway together.
Fantastic. Awesome. With that, let's dive right in. I know that some people, as you're joining, and I'm sure you might have heard about AI. You've hopefully used a couple of those vowels in some of your letters, or emails, or Slack communications. When it comes to AI, what are you seeing people really focus in on, right? We've heard, for folks that have paid attention to this space, we've heard of RAG, we've heard of, no shot, one shot, like all of these different terms. Can you give us, can one of you, could go to Arco, can you give us a little bit of a description about what AI is and what's, what that's helping to solve, or what people can focus on right now as they're just getting started or kind of at an intermediate stage?
Sure. So I think AI is now solving a lot of business case problems that are hard to codify. I'll hand over to Dan to sort of explain that more in depth.
So I think this is the recent shifting from a traditional AI to a generative AI. It brings a lot of excitement in this community. And definitely we have seen internally or externally seen a lot of these needs to deliver the business value with these Gen AI applications. That's where the initial motivation driven this project is from the internal requirement. Want to build this Gen AI platform, right? And this AI gateway is definitely a critical component in this platform to enable users to be easily access both self-hosted AI models on-prem or from the vendor models from cloud providers. I think this trend brings a lot like from the shifting from the traditional AI to like from our platform like a perspective, like there's a lot of like features we want to, because these AI models are more expensive, right? So we need some way to control the cost and also like put on like a safety guard, like what are the content and be we comfortable to send to these AI models. That's why these features needs to be like in a centralized place at the gateway level to. I think this used to be like a rate limiting, and this like content acceptor used to be nice to have feature. It becomes critical and must have features for the ARM like Gen AI platform. So yeah, like Israel, like, you have any other thoughts?
I can add more. So like Bloomberg actually has been working, has doing like AI research for more than a decade. There are hundreds data scientists, researchers that are using our internal platform to do their day-to-day job. So like Dan and I were in the same org that we provide this internal platform just to help them to do their day-to-day job, and that include like in traditional software development we have a concept called SDLC. We actually come up with a new concept, we call it MDLC, model development life cycle, and we ask our user what are the tools you need so you can do your day-to-day job. So previously, actually before the whole Gen AI trend started, more traditionally a lot of people need tools such as I need to be able to train models, I need to be able to access GPU, have some kind of interface allow me to load data set, train model, and have a way to interactively analyze data set. That's what Jupyter Notebook does a very good job there. And after the model is trained, they need a platform to deploy this model similar to deploying a microservice. And that's what Kserve does very good job at. And we provide all these tools to just address our internal need. And as Dan mentioned, that now the requirement continue to evolve. And the new requirement is like, now I already have this very good open source model. What I want to do is either just to use it directly, or I want to fine tune it. What I really want is very rapidly iterate on building an application on top of it. So that's why we start to thinking about what's the best way to allow user to access model without worrying too much, like without like if I need to use a model either train fine-tune on-prem or it's a model provided by a third party. What are the common things as an application developer they need to do? They need to think about authentication, authorization. They need to think about rate limiting how many tokens they can send. And we want to abstract all that into a component so they don't need to worry about. So if we have a lot of application team, they all need to solve the same problem over and over again. So we want to solve it in a centralized piece, and then they can focus on building applications.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I think, or go ahead, Erica. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I just want to say, like, before we started getting to know each other and working, and I've learned so much about AI and LLM stuff from our conversations. You, Shrey, I think you've taught me more than you know. And something that I was so confused about before was like, what is a token really in the world of LLMs? And then I have now learned there's all just about very similar to my experience from search engine solutions like using Lucene and Solar. It's just about breaking down the text into tokens. There are simple ways of like, you want to get really granular, you can actually break tokens down and train a model on single characters, but probably not a good idea. Then the more advanced different tokenization algorithms do parts of words and words, etc., to break those tokens, those strings into tokens. You sure? Am I getting that right? That I feel like those are the things that I've learned, and then that is like one of the key reasons LLMs cannot count the numbers of R's in Strawberry, because it doesn't know about the R's. It just knows about a sequence of tokens, and it doesn't know whether there's R's or not inside of those tokens. So I think that's really
I think you get it very, very quickly. I think a lot of people think like AI is brand new, but it's like a lot of concepts already exist in traditional like a system, like in search system, other system, like all the concepts already exist.
Yeah, and then I thought, like, when we started talking about, oh, we need to handle like LLM traffic, and I was like, oh my god, I don't know anything about LLMs. But all my years in API platform experience actually translated pretty well, understanding how we do authorization, complex authorization, request usage limiting. Now we're just measuring on something else, and rather than number of requests. I think it's really interesting and fascinating. And for me, like realizing that a lot of the skills that I've learned over my career are not sort of dead because of the rise of AI. They're actually still quite useful and can be transferable in many instances.
I think it's really interesting to see that as like everything is layers, right? You know, when we have new paradigms or thoughts or other things like that, you can kind of look back and you can see these patterns. And it's very rare when something is completely net new. And like you said, AI, you know, it's got taking a look at, I just did a timeline recently for some slides in another presentation that I did, and you could see it stretch back, you know, well into the early 1900s, and like, you know, Babbage and the just all these engines and other things that kind of people were trying to figure this out even way back then. I think thinking to when like all of this got started for both of your groups at Bloomberg and Tetrate, can you talk a little bit about that? I'm sure that you saw, you know, AI bills and these things kind of explode, and then you're like, whoa, you know, we can't have that. But were there any other reasons? What are some other things that you took a look at as you got started with some of these efforts?
I think I can start, then Dan can add. Oh, actually, Dan can talk about the story.
Yeah, I think when we started, like initially, like got the internal requirement, like and we had the vision to build this AI gateway, and then we tried to like break down all these features, and we realized, oh, like probably 90% of the features are still should be like all this like observability, like traffic management, or like this like security, client to gateway security, and from the how do you authenticate with the upstream like providers. All these are like already exist in the traditional AI gateway. And what makes it different is like we need to relimit based on like tokens instead of request, or like we have like these like ARM providers. We need to like have, but this authentication authorization mechanism didn't really change. But we are just integrated with like different like cloud service like AWS Bedrock, like Azure OpenAI. So, but the underlying like authentication, I don't think it's really changed. So that's where like we initially, as an open source like first company, we always like value the collaborative like nature and the power of the open source community to bring the people like together to solve the common problem. And that's where like I initially reach out to the CNCF like cloud native AI working group to gauge the interest and see if they're like how many people are interested in this space and how we can collaborate. I think with that, the strong response from the community, we got lots of comments on the original doc. So definitely clearly indicates there's like a significant like kind of a market demand for this space. And as many people like probably like face the similar challenges. So yeah, I think that's where we quickly identify this like Envoy project, which is a community-driven open source project that can meet our requirement. And yeah, like as a key like contributor, I think we probably met like Arco in the initial like Envoy community meeting, right? Like we had discussing how to implement this like a token based relimiting. And then like it's funny, like after like only after a few weeks, then like we decided to like collaborate on this effort. I think that's how this like the project get started.
I really like seeing that happen, right? Just this magic of this necessity and then the invention and just being able to talk with people within the community too. That's all it takes, right? Is that one idea and then a handful of people to actually make it happen, right? The idea is only one step, but everything else and all those Git commits are much more difficult to come by, as well as those requests for comments. Arco, can you talk to some of the like interactions that you've had with Dan and team, and just a little bit more about the community in general? I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, so I think Dan wrote this really comprehensive doc, and he brought it to the Envoy Gateway community meeting, right? That's absolutely the right thing to do. And I remember we went through all the different use cases that he had outlined, from token rate limiting to upstream authorization to more novel routing and load balancing, right? And so latency is critical for these applications, and it just introduced all these different, let's call them nouns, in traffic management. And at first glance, I was very excited to see all of these new things that Dan and team wanted to introduce. I'm hoping that a lot of these features can be enabled in the core in Envoy Gateway or Envoy Proxy, and if not, they can be solved using its extensions. So 2 years ago, when we started Envoy Gateway, the project, the goal was to increase adoption of Envoy Proxy, right? By making it easier to leverage the power of Envoy Proxy, right? One of the initial goals was extensibility. We did have a reasonable expectation. We knew that we would not be able to solve all cases natively. So we did provide 2 sets of extensions. One being you can sort of punch a hole through the Gateway API and directly modify the Envoy configuration. This is a superpower. It's an admin opt-in feature. But you can also, Envoy Proxy also provides multiple levels of extensions in the data plane itself. One of them is Lua, the other is WASM, and the other one is XProc, external processing, where you can actually call out and you can send the request to sort of an external server. And I think these are really powerful tools to where developers can kind of solve all these use cases in these extensions, and hopefully some of them can actually land in Envoy Proxy and in Envoy Gateway layers.
I think it's like
that.
really nice because it gives us a way to really experiment with experimental features through extensions and validate both, like, do they work as we expect them to, and do people want them? And people can actually try them out rather than having a theoretical, like, what if I need this feature? You can actually use an extension and try it. But I did realize something as we were speaking. It was like, I don't know if everyone in the audience know what Envoy Gateway is or what Envoy Proxy is. So feel free to comment if you're one of those people who tuned in and you're like really curious about enabling AI adoption at scale, but you're like, we talk about Envoy Proxy and Envoy Gateway and what on earth is that? Taylor, it's okay if I just give a little bit of an overview of that.
Please. Yeah. We also, you define tokens. For me, that meant the arcade. So this is really helpful.
Yeah.
So yeah, please continue.
I just thought it'd be helpful. So if you are listening to this and you don't know what Envoy Proxy is ultimately a reverse proxy. So think of it as, if you know about Nginx, for example, that is also reverse proxy, or HA proxy, that's also reverse proxy. That traffic comes in and it does stuff to it and it sends it to where it needs to go, to a target server of some sort. So very traditional proxy technology that exists in most any API gateway that you have ever used. Then what is Envoy Gateway? What is really confusing at times is you may think that this is the gateway, this is the thing that handles the traffic, but slow your horses. Envoy Gateway is actually the implementation of the Kubernetes Gateway API. And then now maybe you wonder, what is the Kubernetes Gateway API? It's an API to configure a proxy, to how to handle the traffic, where it is supposed to go. So what Envoy Gateway does, it implements that API and allows you to use Envoy Proxy and all of the power of Envoy Proxy to handle your traffic. So what we are seeing is Envoy Gateway implements all of the Gateway API, but it also extends it with more functionality to really allow you to tap in to Envoy Proxy features. And what we're doing here when we're looking at AI gateway traffic handling, we're extending it even further to help those use cases. Arko, did I do an okay explanation of...
You did a great job, Erika.
Yeah, so I just thought we'd cover that because I just realized that there might be people tuning in and they're like, what on earth is Envoy Proxy?
Words.
Is it someone? Is it an envoy? Is it a diplomatic envoy? So no, it's a technology, not a person.
It's or a poem. Be sure to write that with AI using the Envoy proxy. That would be pretty cool, actually. A reminder too, if you have questions, feel free to throw them into the chat and then we'll get those questions asked. I have my own set here, but would love to hear from you if there's anything that you'd like us to dig a little bit deeper into. I think one of the questions, and really just kind of throwing this up to everybody, why open source? Why not a closed source project and something of that sort? What are you looking to accomplish by making this project, this effort, open source?
I can. Oh, do you want to go first, Yushui?
We can talk about our story as well. Because, like, Bloomberg has this open source strategy. It's a highly encouraged to embrace the open source community. That's also what my team, Dan's team, what we have been doing for years. We are heavily involved with multiple CNCF open source project. We either incorporate them in our stack or contribute to some of them, and also in K-Serve is the one that we initiated and contribute back to the community. So it's really aligned with our high-level strategy. And back to Erica.
Yeah, I think from just Erica's personal point of view as well, I think it's really exciting when we see end users, vendors, and people come together to solve a problem and open sourcing that. I think it needs to come back to belief that if we bring together multiple use cases and multiple users, we are going to be able to accelerate innovation and also make saner decisions about how to implement it. So, for example, if you don't talk, it provides you an opportunity to talk to more people about their use cases, because Yushui and Dan may not know about every use case. There may be another company and other end user that is running into problems that Yushui hasn't run into yet. And by collaborating in the open, Yushui can, for example, Yushui, I'm using you as a character in my story here. But, you may learn from other end users in the community, which also helps benefits you, it benefits them, you learn from each other, and we build features together to address those needs. So I personally think that's a really powerful thing. And I also think it's powerful to open source these features, because as vendors who may be building other solutions on top of these open source Envoy projects as well. So, and that extends it even further. So I do believe fundamentally that it benefits both end users and vendors to collaborate on common features in open source. So that's like my personal view on that, that it does benefit everyone to collaborate on common problems.
I love hearing that. And there was I'm blanking on where the article was this past week that I was reading, but it was talking about, that focus on open source and what makes sense there, what doesn't make sense there. And it's really in these broad, big problems, like Kubernetes would have been really hard to, just create with a single vendor or within a specific organization or like business vertical, right? But because it's so multifaceted and solves a bunch of problems, having a broader community to be able to work with that just enables a lot of productivity on that front. But if it's a very specific tool, like the copy function or something like that, that might make more sense as far as a vendor goes. We did get a question. When we talk about the AI feature sets, are these just extensions to Envoy via Envoy filters, WASM, et cetera, to do token rate limiting?
Do you want to go? Okay.
Sure, I can go. And so they're all true. And so let's talk about token rate limiting. Traditionally, in rate limiting, you are counting a request as one unit. Token-based rate limiting, you are gathering the value of a token from, let's say, the response body, and you're using that to count. This is something that it's usage-based rate limiting, and it is a use case in the LLM gateway case, but it's also agnostic to it, and it applies to other domains as well. And so we're hoping that we can actually provide an API to do something like this in the future. I think Envoy Proxy and the Envoy Rate Limit Service also do provide most of this functionality. And with some minor enhancements, we could provide these features natively in open source.
Yeah, and I think just to be transparent on how we, as we spoke about earlier, about the extensibility. Like from a POC experimental feature point of view, we are leaning on the external process filter in Envoy Proxy to be able to try these features out and validate its use and functionality.
I love that. Sorry, my screen's being crazy. We had another question as far as if anyone's implemented a GUI front end connected to an Envoy AI gateway that handles authorization for users to access specific LLM models on-prem and external or based on access tokens.
I think that was really interesting because I know that of Dan and Yushui has obviously got, just be very transparent, like Bloomberg has a complex authorization decision-making process, which is, hopefully, Yushui, Dan, is anyone building UIs that connect to the gateway?
So I think currently, like it's the main work is making sure all the feature we need exist in the backend. And I think having a UI is an interesting idea. I think that's overall improve the user experience. But right now, our focus is still make sure all the features we need exist there.
When it comes to other kinds of use cases on that front, specifically at Bloomberg, are you able to talk to some of those, or what do those workflows look like with the Envoy, with these new Envoy features and everything that you're working on?
Yeah. I think like initially, basically have a way for user to onboard to use the gateway. I think that's one first step. And from the gateway itself has the ability, which is the feature already exists, we can configure the backend, which the backend could be different provider, could be an on-prem provider. It could be an external provider from public cloud. So that's another significant feature we have. And within those backend provider, we have a way to configure what's the right authentication authorization mechanism. We have a way to configure what's the rate limiting against those providers. And I think thirdly, we have a way to configure the payload conversion because the gateway itself interface is the OpenAI interface. But when we talk to a provider, the provider may have a completely different type of request body format. And we also able to do those conversion. So like this was a very initial flow we want to be able to provide from the backend. And I don't know, Dan, do you want to add more information?
Yeah, I think there are like different like personas like for the ARM gateway, like from like a platform admin perspective, you want to like be able to configure the backend route to either like AWS Bedrock or like on-prem like self-hosted models or other like ARM providers. And from the product like or like security like people, they may want to like control like the authorization policies of who can access the model, right? Like how many like requests they can send per second to be able to like manage like relimiting configurations. We were just talking about like how we can have a UI to like ease this onboarding, like sometimes we can get an onboarding like a burden, like oh, there's so many like different organizations, different teams to want to use this service, and then like how we can like have a user experience to manage these configurations at scale, right? That's also important. And then like and also like there's like a content safety, like a kind of they want to like manage like what are the content that they are allowed or like you to like reject like to manage these like rules once we get there. So I think there are like different personas on like to manage this gateway configurations. I think the when we have the initial like feature parity, then like we will extend to like day two like user experience, like how to manage these for different like roles. But, yeah.
I love that. I think Erica had, let's see, there we go. I had one thing to share too. I can go ahead and throw that up.
I thought it might be helpful to like, this is a very high level like diagram of AI, Envoy AI Gateway in context. So at the top here, see if I can get a little pointer maybe that is visible, but I don't think so. At the top, you will see a light blue box and says client applications. Those could be scripts or UIs or whatever you may be having that are calling and they want to reach an LLM model. But because when you operate in a large organization and you may have multiple LLM providers, external you may be using, and as Dan said, you may be self-hosting some of them, you want to be able to handle all of your developers, maybe thousands and thousands of developers in your organization, and you want to be able to manage access to all of these providers and self-hosted models through a AI platform. And what we're seeing here is the traffic goes in via this Envoy AI Gateway. You will see an Envoy proxy fleet there. Now we're back to what we talked about a bit about earlier, what the relationship between the Envoy Gateway and the Envoy proxy is. But the proxy is the one that handles the traffic. So it's a fleet and horizontally scalable fleet of proxies there running in a Kubernetes cluster. And those will then route traffic onto the appropriate providers based on model availability. And this is where you can get creative with future ideas of features, such as do you want to do selection of where to send a request based on costs or other availability. And maybe you need to fail over, because what if the LLM provider you're using is offline? You don't want your app to start failing. So in an enterprise setting, having the ability to fail over. So this will get into like those future feature opportunities for gateway functionality. But we are all familiar with the concepts of failover in API gateway management anyway. But on the right hand side in this diagram, you see this red box, the AI gateway filters. As I said, we're using today the external processes, but as Arko mentioned, that a lot of these features are not AI traffic specific, but we're seeing use cases for them across. So this is how we will, in the community, have to work through evaluating what is generic traffic handling needs and see what can be brought in upstream to the proxy and gateway. And then you see the yellow box, which is a user of this may have other custom logic. I think anyone who's worked in a large enterprise situation knows that there's, especially when it comes to authorization, like I have definitely been there a couple of times in my career, like loads of rules that have to be evaluated to conclude authorization of a request. And it's not as simple as, yes, no, it's many conditions that need to be evaluated. So that is, for example, in Envoy proxy, you have the external auth filter where you can hook up to a custom piece of code if that is something you need. But yeah, this just wanted to put this in context. You also see a little green box there at the bottom, which is, I want to make a little call out that this is not visible on this diagram. But for example, if you are doing a self-hosted model, there's also other work in the community going on. There's extending the Envoy Gateway project to work as an inference instance gateway. I know that Dan and Arko are quite familiar with that, but Envoy Gateway is not just playing a part at this top level gateway, but we're seeing it appearing as a solution further down the stack as well. A stack, not maybe further down this diagram in the green box.
Clearly, you've modeled model behavior here. I love seeing that. We did have another question about how this interface was exposed to the users, whether it was through Kubernetes CRDs or some other way as well.
So we talk about interface. So there's different parts of interface here. I don't know exactly what that is referring to, but when you're talking about configuring the behavior, that is through Kubernetes CRDs. So that is how you would do it. If you just look at Envoy proxy itself, that's it, API calls. But if we take a step back, what is the implementation of Envoy Gateway and what we're looking at with AI Gateway APIs? Those are CRDs. So the APIs for configuring are CRDs. Arko, do you want to add anything to that? I know you're really well versed in this part of engineering.
Yeah, if we're running, if we're running this in Kubernetes, I think we would love to expose a lot of these features using Kubernetes CRDs. We're trying to also get Envoy Gateway to run natively without Kubernetes, and this would still be API intent that can be expressed in a file.
Cool. Thank you. I know someone else asked, will these request converters or plugins be open sourced?
Yes.
Cool. Easy
It's a
answer.
very
Love
short
it.
answer. Yes.
So it's like we can wait for another 4 minutes. Yeah, you still have 4 minutes. No. Um, Harry was asking, is this effort already implemented? I'm guessing just kind of as a whole, the AI gateway and everything, and pending for open source, or is this an ideal proposal? I'd say already implemented, but want to give you a little bit more time to explain.
So yeah, so that's a good question. So we have a POC implemented utilizing external processes, because it would be crazy to try and go and open source and bring collaboration together if it was dead in the water. I think we all know about fail fast, like try it out. So we tried out what we refer to as the MVP features in a POC where we're utilizing external processes. But what we're really looking at now, and we're having our initial open meeting for the community after KubeCon, because I think we all need to recover from KubeCon, get to KubeCon, get there, get home and recover. But we will get
Sleep.
there, we'll recover, and then we'll recover from KubeCon. So if you are someone who wants to come and collaborate and work together, as we said earlier, we do believe that bringing use cases and vendors together, so end users and vendors to work on these use cases, benefits everyone in the industry. And therefore, if you want to work with us, please come. The POC we built is, not in a state where it's like, oh, that's perfect, that's ship, like go to production, right? We've just validated that the MVP features are actually doable, performant, and that we can take it to this next step. And we want to invite more people to come and collaborate with us. Don't be afraid of us. We are quite nice, I think. I will vouch for all the people on this call that they are quite nice people. You have to ask them about me, but I'd like to think I'm fairly nice.
I think if you share with me any links that you'd want to share with the community on places that they can get involved or things like that, I can go ahead and put those in the chat as well. But yeah, more than happy to help out on that. I've hidden your screen, Erica, but Gautam was asking about the yellow block as part of your diagram too. And he asked, is the yellow block showing the custom logic? Is it using Envoy's ext auth z?
It could be. It could also be using, it could be if you are doing authorization, that yellow box, user custom logic filters, that is where you would, if you have custom authorization rules for your organization, that's where you would put it. But you may have other custom functionality that you want to add in that is not relevant to the rest of the community. You would either utilize external auth or external process to integrate that. So Arco's nodding, so I'm guessing no, I'm not saying anything crazy.
And then one other question was, there are multiple providers already in terms of providing AI gateway, mostly Python based, such as Montag, Lite, etc. How is it going to be different?
Dan, you've obviously done a lot of research on different gateways, and you've tried a bunch of different things out. Hopefully you can shed some light on what your ambitions and hopes are here.
Yeah, so I think you mentioned earlier. So and also depending on like different probably like your the setup or environment that you have already in your so from our perspective, we are when we initially started, because we are already running Envoy-based gateways for traditional AI inference workload. So and we are very familiar how Envoy works, and also we like the Envoy's extensible and flexible architecture. You can always build on top. We don't need to reinvent all the wheels implement for a Python-based ARM gateway. So yeah, there's a lot of projects already out of there. But we think because if we want to manage all the configurations at a scale and be able to quickly push this configuration dynamically on the fly, which is critical for our run this gateway at the production grade. So we think the Envoy has provided these critical features which we need. So that's where and also we want to have also have the expertise running these Envoy gateways, and we have a cohesive like technical stack on our like platform. So that's where like we decide to use the Envoy based gateway like architecture. That's where we initially motivated us to collaborate the Envoy Gateway like community. And it also matches like so we could like implement this like initially in the Queso project itself, but I think like to leverage the expertise from like different like open source communities, combine this power like from like AI melt the AI brain with the gateway brain, so this is what brings a lot of power. So why not we just leverage the expertise Arco has, and so like we can like work together to solve the common problem.
You brought up a great point too, Dan. I think that as you work with people in the community, again, like Kubernetes is used for manufacturing and financial institutions and healthcare. It's you solve all these problems and you get a lot of exposure to a lot new contexts that you might never have done, and that might be helpful for your company or organization too. I think is just one of the cool things that happens in open source that not a lot of people, think about when they initially get involved.
Right.
And I think for me, it's like what's exciting about these features that we're looking at bringing that, especially when it comes to usage-based limiting. I know for LLMs, we're talking about tokens, but in my career from fintech, I worked with a lot of financial analysis APIs that are very computationally complex. So similar in its problems that we see with running LLM models that are compute expensive and intensive. And being able to expose financial analysis APIs and limit the usage of it, not just based on the number of requests, but more sophisticated usage limits. So just one, it's obviously, as the question was, how is this different? I think but also what's different about it is we're able to bring some of these fundamental features beyond just LLM gateways and bringing those features to standard API gateway challenges.
Yeah, plus one to that. And they will be the same features, but you're now reusing existing CNCF infrastructure you've already deployed. That's battle tested. And there is a cost to building new, right, and operating something new. And this will make it easier to sort of operate and develop on top of existing CNCF tooling.
I love that. As far as some of the things you had kind of talked about, things being ready and good in an MVP format, but when it comes to what's next, I know a lot of people love to ask that question. What are you thinking? What's on the roadmap right now? What are things that the community can jump in and help validate, or what do you kind of anticipate as being next priorities for this effort?
Definitely validating the MVP features that we start a POCing on, like joining us for a meeting and collaborate as we get that after KubeCon. That will be super helpful to especially when it comes to like token usage based limiting, and as well as something we haven't talked about here, but we talk about trying to get to be able to do failovers between LLM providers. You need to have a unified LLM API that all the apps are interacting with. So if I have an app that is interacting with LLM models in this AI platform landscape, I don't know or frankly care where that model is being ran. That's something that the AI platform team needs to worry about, not me, the developer, just using LLM functionality. So what you need to have then is this unified API that doesn't differentiate between AWS Bedrock or OpenAI or my internal self-hosted LLM model. So I think that is something also to come and work with us and validate around a unified API. I know, Dan, maybe you want to share a bit more about your other work and other working groups that happen. Possibly, I don't know if you have things to share that obviously you're the one who's teaching me a lot about these things and challenges, Dan.
Sorry, what's the question?
About like the unified API and how different working groups and efforts to make sure there is a standardized LLM interaction API, and making sure that happens. I think that is something where people can help us as we open up collaboration. People can join us especially after KubeCon, when I recovered and slept, to help us validate that unified API actually makes sense, not just for everyone.
Yeah, I think we have another working group has already kind of like it's also like involved like multiple companies, like it's mainly the inference providers from like NVIDIA, like any other whoever provides the industry leading like models area like inference like a model server. So we basically come together. Like I mean, initially we all followed like OpenAI's route, right? So they provided the schema which widely adopted by the industry at this point. So we were additionally like following their route, and then like most of these providers already implemented OpenAI like an inference protocol, and we basically want get together all these people. How we can like extend that. Right? So there's like a slightly, of course, there will be like a different requirement from different companies. We can see can we take that base of what OpenAI provides currently, we can extend it and still be compatible, because there's like a lot of OpenAI client already, people are in the industry using that. So we want to be compatible, but at the same time, we want to be able to extend that to meet like the needs like from the community. So that has been like in active discussion, and we have a proposal like made by the NVIDIA folks. I think we also have like regular meetings like to basically to adopt this like as a unified like inference API across like for the industry, so we can like have like a community driven and maintain the like schema for everyone. So I think that will be the sort of like a strong like foundation for like for this like in this space to be a standard in future.
Lovely. I think it's going to be interesting to see people test this, and then other ideas that come up out of all of those tests, because that's what happens. It's never tests and then you're complete. It's always you get more inspiration for other things you might want to add. We had a question from the chat. Ankur was asking about saying there are multiple Envoy-based gateways, such as Blue. Will they get benefited automatically with the Envoy AI feature once it's available? Separately, do we have a list of API gateways built on top of Envoy? I'll take the last part. Yes, but kind of looking where that is, there's multiple places on Medium, Docs, and other things. But Envoy is a very, very central piece to a lot of other CNCF projects. It's similar to Kubernetes as the platform to build platforms. Envoy helps out with a lot of those networking features, capabilities, and other things like this project for AI. So there are lists. It's just kind of where you want to go and take a look at those. There was, I think it was CubeDex had a really good one at one point in time. I'll see if I can find that link while I throw the question to the rest of everybody. But that was pretty helpful.
Yes, I think you can also find a list on the Envoy proxy site. Arco, am I right there? I think there is a list of all like vendors that implement it. So if you're curious, there's definitely information to find there. So will these features benefit any vendor that are building on top of Envoy? I think because they're open source, it's definitely down to the vendor if and how they want to incorporate that in their offering. Vendors may, regardless of AI features, they may disagree with a filter in Envoy proxy, right? And choose to not support it via their vendor offering. For example, that can happen. They can be like, oh, these filters are not part of how you can configure and use Envoy when you use it via Erica's Envoy gateway, right? I may choose to not make that available to someone. So it's ultimately up to the vendor what features from the open source solutions they support and incorporate into their vendor offering. That's how I look at it. At least they benefit in as much as they would like.
I'll add on top of that. So I think any solution using Envoy proxy and Envoy Gateway will benefit from a lot of this work. As this group, we're committed to sort of adding a lot of these features natively into Envoy proxy. For example, Takeshi is investigating building out a body transformation filter where a lot of the request to the providers has the model name inside the body. So you may want to copy that into a header or inspect it and make some intelligent routing decisions based on that. And so this requires new features that were always available, in proprietary API gateway solutions, but now is maybe a good time to add this into open source itself. And so, yeah, the short answer is, everybody will benefit from it.
Yeah, and like we want to see collaborators joining this effort, both from end users, vendors, is whoever you are as an engineer, wherever you're coming from. Careers are long, right? So, and the industry is small, so working together is a is really valuable for all of us.
I agree. I think it helps us iterate and have discussions too. I know a lot of people will kind of be newer to the open source space. Well, it takes some getting used to what the momentum looks like, because when you look at the PRs and the code, things might move slower there. But if you take a look at the conversations and planning, all that's moving at a very rapid pace. And so it's kind of follow the work and taking a look at where all those things come together to create tools like this. Harry asks, will this gateway expose OpenAI compatible API to users?
That would be ideal. And so the Gateway API project is a project neutral sort of API, and many implementations have implemented that API. Similar for all these LLM use cases. If we do find many implementations who've actually already implemented them as an API, we can build out a common API that each implementation can actually implement. The user wins at the end of the day. It makes migration easy. There is no lock-in to a specific project. So I think, I think that would be great to have in the future.
Yeah, and I think that comes back to what Dan was saying earlier about the working group, the cross-industry working group.
The plans definitely make it OpenAI protocol compatible. So all the existing OpenAI clients will be able to talk to our AI gateway seamlessly without any changes.
Nice. I know that's been a big point of contention for a lot of people, are all of the different encodings and models and API specifications. I've got my fingers crossed as far as some efforts going on there to help standardize, ways to interact with models. This is a great effort that y'all are working on and kicking off to kind of help move us in that direction. But yeah, I still think that taking a look at the app development side of things too, there's still a lot of things that need to shake out on that front as well, but time will tell what all these standards and specifications look like. I remember the before times before OCI and Run C and all of those things too. The container runtime wars, for those that were around, that was fun times. Ankur said, thanks for the list. As per Claude, and then here's a list, but didn't see the link. Alex says, is there a GitHub repo for this or website?
I think that's a good question. So as I said, we are really coming after KubeCon North America, as we'll be kicking off our community collaboration. So stay tuned, join the Envoy channel that I think you posted earlier here, Taylor, to stay tuned in. As I said, we've been working to validate in a POC that these features are at least feasible to do. But the next step, is to get that, get a repo together, get information together so that we can collaborate. And stay tuned after KubeCon North America. Come and work and collaborate with us in that space. So looking forward to seeing people there. Otherwise, you can also be just snooping if you don't have the time to be properly involved. We appreciate you just being interested in the work. That is also, validating. It keeps people a bit motivated that someone cares.
Awesome. I think that's it for questions. We're just about at time. So would love to wrap up with all of you. Do you have any closing thoughts? We can kind of popcorn around, but starting with you, Arko, any final closing thoughts on this project, AI in general, or just some mantras to focus on as we move into KubeCon season?
No, as a maintainer of the Envoy Gateway project, I'm really excited to see all these use cases being solved. If you have joined this webinar today, are interested, please join the channel. And I'm hoping you can be part of this initiative.
Cool. Thank you. Erica.
My closing thoughts are, if you are trying to enable AI adoption at scale inside of your organization, the gateway is only one of your components that you are going to need. So do pay attention that you're going to need more than just the gateway. I'm sure Dan and Yuzhi will tell you that there's many more puzzle pieces to worry about. But a gateway is an incredibly critical part, similar that we see with API platforms. The gateway is a critical component to succeed.
Dan, any final thoughts or things that you're getting ready for KubeCon here with all these efforts kicking off?
Yeah, I'll be at KubeCon to talk to more people, like to showcase. Yeah, definitely looking forward more people to join this project after KubeCon and see what takes off from there.
I'm also looking forward to see more people can join this project and hope it evolves more.
Looking forward to it as well. Yeah, looking forward to seeing all of you at KubeCon. Everyone here in this chat that I can see right now, and all of you outside of it as well. Come by, ask us questions. We'd be more than happy to have a chat with you. Thank you so much for watching today. It was a pleasure to answer all of your questions, and really exciting to take a look at this new project.
I do want to say that come by the Envoy kiosk or the Tetrate booth or whatever, especially the Envoy kiosk at KubeCon. If you want to get involved, I'll try to be there a decent amount of time. I'll be at the Envoy kiosk.
If you see a man there yelling and directing people, that might be George Castro. I'm fairly certain, 99% probability. He's also someone that can help introduce you to the projects in that project pavilion, and then also connect you with Erica, myself, others on that front as well. But wonderful. Hope to see you there. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and we'll catch you